What's going on, good people? Today I'm going to be working on this 2001 Toyota Camry, and what I'm going to do is I am going to change the fuel pump. The reason why I'm going to change the fuel pump is because I think it is failing. I think it is failing because I could start the car, I could drive the car, and everything would be fine. But if I sat idle at a traffic light too long, the car would just slowly die out. With that being said, let's get started. Changing a fuel pump isn't that bad of a job. All you really need are a few tools: an 8mm socket, an extension, a ratchet, and so a couple of screwdrivers. You might have to do some soldering, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So first thing we got to do is get this back seat out of here. So just lift up on the front of the back seat and you should be able to just pull it right out. And when you pull it out, that should reveal the hatch. Now, as we pry open the hatch, we got to be careful because we don't want to bend it. But it's just only held down with glue. It's not screwed down or anything or bolted down. It just pulls right up. Now this glue is really sticky. It sticks to everything. You'll see later on in the video I tried using gloves and it stuck to the gloves. But just do the best you can. So now there are two main connectors that you see when you lift the hatch. You see the electrical connector and you see the fuel line. You got to push in on the electrical connector to release it and lift up. Yeah, there you go. And the fuel line is protected by a bracket which covers it. So the bracket is bolted down along with the mounting bracket. So you gotta take two 8mm bolts out to lift the bracket to get to the fuel line. So go ahead and take those out. See that glue sticks to everything. Remove the bracket. See the fuel lines. Now the fuel lines do have fuel in them, so when you disconnect them, fuel will spill out, so be careful. All right, once you put everything to the side, just undo the other 6mm, the other 6 8mm bolts. Lift the bracket up, mounting plate. And now the fuel pump should just pull right out. Be careful not to bend it because there's a float on it, and we'll explain that in a minute. But maneuver the way you have to, but don't bend the float, don't break anything. Be careful with it because that assembly is about $800 if you want to have to replace that whole assembly. All right, let me work out the zoom so we can get a little closer and discuss the anatomy of this fuel pump assembly. Have the fuel nozzle here, the electrical connector here, have the float right there. There's an O-ring which helps it seal to the body of the chassis so you don't have gas leaking out of the tank. Fuel pump off to the side, the new one we're going to place it with. And the fuel filter there to make sure that all the gas is clean. And inside the housing is the fuel pump. So that's what we need to get to. So let's speed this up. Now you got to be careful when you're taking off these brackets because they're plastic and they will break. So just be very, very careful. And they're held on by like 4 or 5 clips. And all you need is a screwdriver to just pry them off. All right, once you do that, there's a rubber grommet. You gotta just pull it off. Just grab it and pull it off. All right, now you see this should reveal a metal locking pin right there. But before I do that, I'm going to try to get it out of the assembly. And it's held on again at the other side by 3 or 4 plastic clips. Again, be careful, don't break these. And just pop them out and it should slide right out. Now just disconnect the electrical connector and the pump should just slide right out the housing. All right, let me get this new fuel pump out the package. And first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check the connectors. Electrical connectors have to be the exact same, otherwise I might have to solder. There should be a new connector in the fuel pump if I have to solder, but we'll see. Okay, so that locking pin, I gotta get that locking pin off, which holds the fuel filter on. You see me trying to pry it. You gotta be careful too, because the fuel filter is plastic and it's going to be on there tight. So I got the locking pin off and the fuel filter should just come off, but it's going to be on there tight as it should be, but you got to be careful. Okay, it's off. Now I'm going to remove the cap for the fuel filter on the new pump so I can attach the old fuel filter on. It has to be on tight and it should fit flush. It was flush on the old pump, so it should fit flush on the new pump. But it's going to be on there tight. So do what you have to do without breaking it. Put back on the locking pin. Secure it. Secure it well. Secure it really well. The last thing you want is that to come off in the fuel tank, because you'll never find it. Once that's done, I can take off the nozzle for the pump. And the old pump has a plastic cap, which I'm going to pop off here. It has a rubber O-ring. And it has a sheath. It just pulls right off. And the new pump should come with some parts. It came with a new cap. Came with a new O-ring, but I'm going to use the same old sheath. So I'll just put those parts onto the new pump. Sheath first, O-ring, and then the cap. And the cap was hard to get off. Those can be hard to get on. So you gotta do whatever you have to do, once again, without breaking it, because these parts are plastic. It should click on. All right, now we are ready to reassemble the assembly. Put the rubber grommet back on. Put the plastic cap back on the bottom. Should click on. Plug in the electrical connector. It should just snap back together. The float moves easily without being inhibited. Does not scrape against anything. Okay, so now it's time to put the pump back in. We're going to do this gently because we don't want to bend anything. So let me ease the pump in. Make sure it's seated well. Make sure it's aligned well. Then I'm going to put back on the mounting plate because it has to go on before I can connect the fuel connector. Now I'm going to reconnect the fuel line. Now I'm going to put that bracket that protects the fuel line. I'm going to bolt that down first because it goes through the mounting plate. Get those started. Okay. So now what I can do is I can start putting in the other 6 bolts. And I'm gonna start in a star pattern, just like when I'm taking off a tire or tightening a tire. So that way it evenly distributes the torque on the plate. Go final check. Now I'm going to connect the electrical connector, the pump. Make sure it's down nice and tight. Put the lid back on. Press it down, make sure it's on tight. And that's it. Job done. All right, moment of truth. Let's see if the fuel pump replacement was successful. What do you know? It cranks. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and I can bring you more custom videos on DIY projects that you can do yourself and save yourself money. Thanks for watching.